All right, well, we're back now for part 2 of transforming the Boxcar, and this is going to be a quick little lesson on weathering. So this is an easy form of weathering that anybody out there can do who's never weathered anything before. So the only thing you're going to need are 2 paint pen markers, and I'll tell you a little more in detail about these in a minute. Some paper towels and a can of flat clear coat. So that's all there's going to be to it. The first paint marker I'm going to use is a Model Master, and it's Rust is the color. And I got this at Hobby Lobby. You can probably order it online, no problem. And then the second one is a tester's marker, and it's called Roof Brown. So this Roof Brown actually comes in a set of 3 paint pen markers. I think the other 2 are aged concrete and weathered black, but I'm only using the Roof Brown for right now. So these 2 will give you a really good effect when you're weathering. Now you can see I have my Boxcar. I've got the floor off of the Boxcar. You don't have to do that. I just have it like that right now. You can also take the trucks off if you want, but you really don't need to take the trucks off. So give my paint pen a shake, make sure it is mixed up thoroughly. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the trucks and I'm going to start coloring them with this rust. So what we want to lay down first is the paint pen called Rust. So I can just take it and like I said, if you want to, you can take the trucks off, you can take the wheel sets out. But I don't ever find that necessary. So, so you can see I just ran around there with the rust, and make sure you get the edges of the wheel really good. Now, for you, most of you out there, you probably don't want to get the treads. I'm going to go ahead and color my treads just because I'm not worried about getting paint and stuff like that on the track since I'm using battery power. So I'm going to go ahead and even color my treads. And we're going to do the entire truck this exact same color. And we're going to do it for both trucks. Okay, just make sure you get all the crevices. Make sure you get the back of the wheels. That's something a lot of people miss, and the axles, the back of the truck, because you can see it from the other side when it's sitting on the track sometimes. So you want to make sure you want to cover everything. Just make sure you cover everything really well. You know, if you do miss a spot, it's not going to be that big a deal. Or you'll see sometimes the paint's a little thin in spots, and that's fine too, because we're going to come back over it. As you can see, I'm going to get my axles. Really easy to do the axles. You get them in about 4 or 5 swipes. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and finish this truck and the other trucks off camera, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so I have all the trucks done, both of them. As you can see, they're completely covered, front and back. So we're going to leave them like that for just a minute. And the next thing we're going to do are the couplers. So real easy, just I would get the draft gearbox as well on the coupler, you know, the sides and the top, you know, make it look a little more realistic, because remember the couplers corrode as well. So there we go. I've got that done. There's the coupler. I'm actually painting the coupler, believe it or not. A lot of people don't like to do this, but because of the springs in the Katy couplers, but believe me, once you work it back and forth a few times, the springs won't know they've ever been painted. So make sure you paint the inside of the coupler. You know, get your pen in there, and the bottom. So I'm gonna hope the camera's focusing on that. There it is. So you can see I'm painting all of it, including the, like I said, including the spring, because once the paint dries on the spring, it's going to be a little stiff at first. You just work it back and forth a few times and it'll loosen back up. So make sure you get, like I said, the underside of the coupler and the arm as much as you can, and the inside of the knuckle. Boxcar that I'm transforming is not a high detailed boxcar. Most of the stuff's molded on, but just doing this little bit, the decals in the first part and the weathering here is going to give you just going to take it up a notch, you know, so it'll look good in your train. Every car we have can't be super detailed unless you've got a lot of money, and I don't, so because I have other bills, you know. You know, I got to buy food once in a while and things like that, and pay the electric company. So everything we have can't be super detailed, but you can make it look really nice. Just by doing a few things to it. There we go. So I've got the draft gearbox and the couplers painted with this rust colored pen. Now I'm just going to give it a few minutes to dry, not very long, just about you know, just about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so when this is dried just a short time, you want it to look dry, but you don't want it to dry completely, which it's enamel, so it's going to take several hours to really dry. So you can see that this looks dry. So now I'm going to come back with the roof brown marker, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go over the trucks, the couplers, and if you noticed, I took the air canister here, the air reservoir, and the brake actuator and all, and I also painted them just because when it's sitting on the layout, you can kind of see under there those hang down. So I'm gonna do the same thing. Just take the roof brown and just go back over everything. So let me just show you one. So I'm just gonna cover this with paint. I know it's kind of hard to see when my hands are in the way, what I'm doing, but all I'm doing is everything I painted with that rust marker. I'm just painting with the roof brown marker. So, and what it's going to kind of do is going to reactivate that paint and mix together a little bit. But it's also going to darken everything up to make it look the correct color. So, and so if you miss a spot here and there, that's fine, because then you'll just look like there's a little rust showing through. But remember, this stuff is not cast iron, so you don't want that reddish rust color, and so you want more of a dark color when they when the steel that this is made out of corrodes, it turns more brown than it does rusty. So, but a little bit of that, if you forget a spot and just the light color shows through, then that's fine. Just gives it a little more highlight. Just get everything. Make sure you get the journal boxes or the roller bearings, depending on what kind of truck it is. The back of the wheels, the front of the wheels. Just don't paint the treads if you're worried about getting paint on your track. If you do get a little paint on the treads or the flange, you can actually just wipe it off. I hope you can kind of see this. See what I'm doing on camera here. I know my hands keep getting in the way. Let's see, I've got a little bit of light color left in there. So I'm just going to try to get it with my pen. Underneath here. Yeah, you know, every once in a while, like I said, if you miss a spot and a little bit of light, the lighter color shows through, then that's fine. It just, it looks like there's, you know, maybe a spot that got dirty or rusty or something like that. It gives it a little character. So That's the big thing you want to make sure you do when you're weathering or any scenery or anything like that in multiple colors. And that's another good thing, since this is since this roof brown pen is reactivating the color under it, it's going to mix a little bit and you're going to get a third color. So you see I'm coloring is all I'm doing. And that gives you a good sense of how easy this is. You don't even have to worry about staying in the lines because there's no lines to stay in. You're just painting everything. And I'm going to do once again, I'm going to paint the, you know, the couplers. One thing I want to caution you when you are painting the couplers, be careful if you've got KD couplers, be a little, even though you're painting the spring, be a little gentle around the spring because you could knock the spring out of the coupler. And I have done that. Make sure you get all the tops and everything. So you can see what I've done so far, so that's okay. It's just making sure you cover everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and do the rest of it off camera. All right, and then we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so I've got the trucks and the couplers all done, and we're going to set those aside and just kind of let that dry for a little while. And after it dries, I'll show you the effect. So right now we're going to work on the body of the boxcar. All right, so the first thing we want to do is take your rust pen and make sure it's shook up really well. Now, what I'm going to do on this is you see the rivet seams on the boxcar. All right, so on the rivet seams, I'm going to take, you can see that this one's getting a little worn, but you can see there's a chiseled edge on the paint pen, okay? So I'm going to take the chiseled edge and I'm going to do about half of one side at a time. So with this chiseled edge, I'm going to go down each seam, and don't forget the end here. I'm sorry, don't forget the end, the seams, and then the edge of the door, okay? All right, so here we go. All right, so I'm gonna start with the edge, and you can just see I'm drawing down there, and then I'm taking the seams, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm gonna just draw straight along the seams. Right over that nice decal work that I did. So we only want to do about half of this because we don't want it to dry. That's the whole point, is to not let this dry. Okay, so I did that. All right, so I'm gonna real quickly take a paper towel and just wipe straight down, right where I did that rust. Okay, wipe straight down along those seams. Okay. Some seams it's going to leave a little more, some seams it's going to be a little less, and if you're not happy with it, go back along the seams and just draw straight along the seams. That's all you got to do. And then once you draw straight along the seams, we're just going to take a paper towel and straight down. You want to pull it straight down. You don't want to get anything going sideways here. So anybody can do this. All right, so do the same thing for the other half. Just take that chiseled edge, make sure you come straight down the seam with it. And one thing I like to do is, aside from this, is I like to go along in the door tracks and do the rust as well, because I think that's a good place for it to rust. And then I've also, I probably want to get the top edge of the door and the bottom edge. So I can do that. All right. So same thing, just take it and run it straight down with your paper towel. That's all I'm doing. And then of course I did the door tracks and the top of the door. And then there's the edge, okay. So I don't want to forget too, now we got to do the ends. And this is a little hard to do because you've got ladders and things, so don't forget to color inside of the ladders. If you've got a boxcar that you're building out of a kit and you need to put in ladders go on separately, you can actually put the ladders on after you weather it. So you can see I'm just pressing the pen into the ladder rung, in between the ladder rungs. So and then once I do that, I'm going to come back and take my paper towel and just kind of wipe in there and, you know, dab it in between the rungs so I can, it won't, if you can't get a lot of it out, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine, believe me. When we're done, you won't believe it. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the brake wheel too. I want to get a little rust on the brake wheel, and then I want to take the top of the corrugated ends and just draw along the top of those. Okay, and the step for the brake wheel. So I'm just drawing along the top of the corrugated ends. And then maybe down at the bottom a little bit, however you want to do it. But at this point, we're just wiping this off because this is supposed to simulate more of a rust kind of effect than dirt. So we don't want a lot of it. We don't want to over rust our boxcar, or they'll take it out of service. So there we go. All right, so that's the end there. I'm going to come back along and do the end. This end has no ladder on it except for the short ladder. So that's good. I'm just going to come along and color the top a little bit, get in between those rungs on the short ladder. And then once I do that, wipe it off. So you can see it's going to leave some rust on there, but it's not going to be as prominent once we do the next step. Okay? All right. All right, I'll do the other side in a minute, but what I really want to concentrate now on is the top of the car. So this is one of those, it's I don't know if they're aluminum or steel on the top, but they do get dirty and they tend to have a little bit of rust on them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do first one half of the top and then do the second half. And all I'm going to do once again is start from the center and draw. You really don't want to get much past the center. It doesn't hurt if you do a little bit. But so I'm just drawing right here with my rust pen. I'm just coloring in, filling in where the top is. Not anything, you know, where you have to be super critical of what you're doing or, you know, be so cautious. Like I said, anybody can do this method. It's more than a 40-foot boxcar. You might want to do half of one side instead of the whole side. The good thing about this rust too, it'll get rid of those on older boxcars or less expensive ones. This silver roof's painted on, and it's got a feathered edge, which doesn't look exactly right. So this will help that. So you can see I'm just wiping it off. Just coming back with a paper towel and wiping it off. That's going to leave a little bit of rust in there. There you go. So you can see what half of it looks like compared to the other half. Now what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to do the other half and this side of the boxcar, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've done both sides now. One thing I still want to caution you on again is when you put this on, always straight down. When you wipe it off with a paper towel, straight down. Okay? You never want to go sideways. Never, never, never. Always straight down. Okay? Because you want to follow the way that weathering would have done. You know, rain dripping off the roof, things like that. It's always from top to bottom. So another thing you can do, and I didn't show you before, but you can go back this same way and do the doors. So I'm gonna take the doors and just run my rust pen in the corrugated door here. All right. So now I'm just gonna. This is the one place where you probably want to wipe across. Is in that corrugated, but make sure you don't do that on the body. And the reason why, of course, is because the corrugation's running from side to side, so that's okay. You just don't want to do that at the body. All right, so one more side. Come back and do the same thing here on this side of the boxcar. Of course, if there's no corrugation, if it's a flat door, you know that you might not want to do this, or you might have spots where you want to add rust on that kind of door. So around the latches and things like that. So just going to wipe this off. And remember, this rust is going to become a lot fainter at our next step. So. All right, so there we go. We're done with the rust step. So now, once that's done, you're going to take your roof brown pen again. Make sure you shake it up well. And once again, we're going to do half of one side. We're not going to do a whole side because we don't want this stuff to dry before we do this. So if you do a whole side, you run the risk of letting it dry too much. So, which might be good if you want to do some real heavy weathering, but I dropped my paper towel on the floor. So I'm going to come back now with my roof brown pen, and I'm going to color the entire thing, still going up and down. Always up and down. Remember to get the steps and ladders and things like that. So you can say, oh no, he's coloring over that nice decal. Yes, I am. Because remember, graffiti stays on there a while. It's going to be weathered just like the rest of the car. But remember, I put a gloss coat or a protective coat of lacquer on top of this decal, so it's not coming off. So you can see I'm coloring the whole side with this roof brown color. Now, of course, like I said, you don't want to let it dry on there. Make sure you get the bottom edge. And it's not covered completely, which is the effect you're going for. Once again, pull straight down. Straight down. That's all you're doing, pulling straight down. Because you gotta pull in the same pattern that the boxcar would be weathered, straight down. And you see how it hid some of the rust that we've already done already. So, and we've got some nice dark colors up at the top, like the dirt's just dripping off the top. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the door. Because I want the door to look like it's dirty as well. Just coloring it up. All right, come back on the door. Like I said, since the corrugations are going left to right, you can wipe that way here. And you can see that it's mixed in with some of the rust and tone that down a little bit. So you don't have to worry about that. Now I'm gonna do this same way. And if you don't want to experiment on one of your fleet, remember to get a Tyco car or something real cheap at a train show, you know, for $1 or $2, and then take it home and experiment on it. No harm in doing that. Now here I might want to leave it just a little bit longer. And the reason why is because dirt gets trapped in those door rails and drips down. The dirt's usually a little heavier there where the door slides are. So don't forget to get inside the ladders, okay, behind them. It's very important, or it's not going to look right. Always straight down though. Okay, so I can even see now that it's, and I don't know if you can tell on camera, but you can see that it's starting to dry a little bit. All right, so that's what you don't want to let it. You don't want to let it get good and dry. So I'm going to take it and pull it straight down once again. As I can do that, you can see the effect that's kind of happening here. I let it go a little heavier, let it dry a little bit more right under the door drip rail, or the sliding rails for the door. Make sure I get my paper towel in between those rungs, but you do want it around the rungs. That not only highlights the ladder, but it looks like the dirt's kind of caked around the ladder somewhat. So this is a little, you can see it's a little dirtier here on this side. Okay, and if you're not happy, go back over it and do it again. All right. I think I do want a little more dirt on this side. So I'm gonna do that. All I'm gonna do once again, up and down, up and down, up and down. Straight up and down. And if I want to leave a little heavier, I just wipe a little bit lighter. Okay, so I'm wiping a little bit lighter now. And you can shine it in the light. If you can see as I'm shining in the light, I can tell whether I'm really going straight up and down or not. And that's what I gotta make sure I do. Straight up and down. All right, so let's do the end now. Let's show the end. Once again, the brake wheel, in between the ladder rungs. We want to make sure we get in between those ladder rungs. And I'm sorry if I keep going out of camera. It's kind of hard when you're doing this to watch the camera and watch what you're doing too. So. I'm going to put some dirt there, run across, make sure every place that I got the rust, I got the dirt too. You don't want to leave open spaces where you don't have any rust or dirt or anything like that. So this is the hard end because the ladder goes all the way to the top. I'm just going to take my paper towel and try to get in between the rungs a little bit, in between the brake line assembly. I'm going to pat my brake wheel, and then I am going to kind of go back and forth just because once again the corrugation runs left to right. So leave it a little heavier around the ladders if I want to, and the brake lines. So just whatever you think looks right. You're not going to get a bad result, believe me. All right, now let me do half the top again. Once again, I'm just going to come back and I'm doing this. I haven't let the rust dry thoroughly. You don't want to do that because you do want it kind of lifting up some of the rust or blending in with it. So remember, the top of these box cars get filthy. I mean, they get really dirty. So you'll rarely ever see one unless it's fairly new with it, you know, with the silver really shining through a lot on it. Alrighty, so that's the dirt on the top. Once again, the longer you wait, the more grime is going to be on there. So I'm just gonna take it and wipe it. And you can see it took some of the rust with it, but it blended in a lot of it too. So there you go. All right, so I've done a side for you, the top and the ends. So now I'm going to do the other end and the other side off camera, and I'll be right back. Okay, there you go. There's the finished product, or almost finished. So there's going to be one step left, and that's to clear coat it, and we'll do that tomorrow. You want to give it a chance to dry pretty thoroughly. Give that enamel paint a chance to dry. And there's the other side that we did on camera. Gotta make sure I get the paper towel fuzz off. So that's what it looks like. So you can see this is a nicely weathered box car. It looks fairly prototypical. So once everything dries real well, we'll get outside and we'll spray a clear coat of flat lacquer on it. So we'll see you tomorrow to do that. Okay everyone, this is the final step. I got a nice sunny day here, so I'm gonna give it clear coat, matte, and the clear coat will help make the weathering just a little bit more subtle, but it'll give it everything a smooth finish. So I'm gonna shake up my can here. And as you can see, I'm just using Krylon matte finish, nothing fancy. That's all it is. Just like I used after I did the decaling step. Alright, a little bit windy day, so come here and do that. And don't be afraid to spray the trucks even. Walk in front of the camera here. There we go. So like I say, that'll just give it a nice blended finish. So that's the last step. We're going to let it dry, and then I'll be back with the finished product. Okay everyone, so there is the finished product. And I think this is just a simple way to go ahead and, you know, weather your boxcars. Of course, it's not the only way. And there's multiple methods you can use, airbrushing, pastels, things like that. But if you've never done it before, I think this is probably one of the simplest way to achieve some good results. Just the 2 paint pens and the dull coat. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed this, and don't forget the contest. So when I reach 225 subscribers, we're going to have a drawing for the 2 Southern coal gondolas, the high-sided coal gondolas. So this is Flying Crow. Have a good evening.